another cybernetic system.
No, I was in Milano.
The construction, the perception of the model influences the model being perceived.
It can influence it, yeah.
And you still have relationships with Italian network in Italy?
I thought it was, maybe it comes down to the same thing. I thought cybernetic systems was when you take the observer of the system into account.
The assumption is that it's called second-order cybernetic because the observer itself is a cybernetic system.
Okay. But also, for example, with the Pepsi Cola example, it's not simply that the Pepsi Cola is putting things out into the environment and then receiving input from the environment. I mean, in the simplified model it is, but actually the environment is also composed of cybernetic systems, right? So like the consumer
Coca-Cola is making a model of Coca-Cola because they want to be able to predict what kind of activities their competitors will do,
Yeah.
and therefore it's a second-order model.
then that's like, oh right, okay. But even the consumer, for example, they're a cybernetic system. So if we think about them not simply as an environment, but the environment made of cybernetic systems, then that's second-order cybernetic. Okay.
On university, whereas the contemporary approach and that's why around, I mean, in Emilia Romagna, you have all the research theater projects in Italy in 30 years.
Global brain, as I call it. That includes the ecosystem kind of.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That's why, I mean, in a way, you can move much faster.
Now we come during the day after our meeting.
I will be there at last because I really thought it's super
It's just like
it's also around the way the exhibition in the I was in school of my child today and I saw the affiche there, so I was really astonished. Yeah, for a lot of the events, there are like 300 and you need to buy them separately. That's why I decided, but it's cheaper to buy it separated, I think, Nora. So I decided I will buy it tomorrow.
I already have like a list of things I want to go to on Friday.
Yeah, me too.
And then tomorrow I will definitely go to the opening.
The opening of the vernissage.
Yes, at like
Tomorrow there are also before the film is kind of conference of this Japanese filmmaker with yeah, I will go there because how we perceive visually is very specific to me.
Okay, let's start again. So the next chapter is called Complex Adaptive Systems, and this is an approach that roughly emerged in the 1980s. The previous ones, systems theory and cybernetics, it's roughly about the 1950s that this approach came up. The complex adaptive system, that's roughly the 1980s, and if there's one place that you associate with complex adaptive systems, it's the Santa Fe Institute in the state of New Mexico in the US. There, for the first time in the 1980s, they started to bring together people from many different disciplines. What's the difference between this approach and previous approaches? They're both speaking about systems, they're speaking about agents, they're speaking about systems that are complex, but the previous approaches, they kind of assume that you can make a scheme, like we made some drawings, complicated, much more fuzzy, but by the 1980s, they had computers that were powerful enough that they could simulate them. So now we will speak about how did they simulate these systems. And the essence is indeed, it's a method of simulation. It's not really a theory. System C tries to make these kind of general schemes, like there are couplings, circular couplings, serial couplings, parallel couplings. Well, in the complex adaptive systems approach, it's kind of, we have elements that interact, but there is no clear logic of the interactions. How can we still model these kind of systems? By looking at each of the agents. So when I use my scheme of a cybernetic system, I said it's a control system or it's an agent. So if we forget about the details of the cybernetic system and just look at it from the outside, we say it's an agent. That means it's something that will act on the conditions it perceives, condition action rules, in such a way that it typically tries to achieve some goal. So depending on what the goal is, different agents will behave differently. So what is now a complex adaptive system? It's what you get if you throw a lot of these agents together and you let them interact. It's simple. You kind of assume that these different agents are in the same environment, which means one agent notices a condition, it performs an action, the action changes the condition, it has an effect on the environment. The other agents are in the same environment, so they will notice that. So imagine you have a number of agents in some environments, they're looking for food. One agent sees food, condition, action, it moves towards the food to consume it. That's what typically a goal-directed system would do. But now assume that there are different agents in the same environment, and two agents see the food, two agents move towards the food, but the one is first, it eats the food, that will affect the second agent. The second agent will notice, the food is no longer there, and it was moving to a different piece of food. So that's the kind of that you get in a complex adaptive system. You have different agents. Each agent has a goal, which may be the same or different from the other agents, but in order to reach its goal, it will act. By acting, it changes the environment. By changing the environment, it will indirectly affect the other agents, because the other agents will notice what's going on in the environment. Therefore, they will change their own actions. So all the agents interact, but there is no fixed interaction. It's not that agent A always affects agent B. Now, sometimes when agent A and B are trying to consume the same food, they will influence each other, but at other moments, agent A and B are in different parts of the environment, they don't affect each other. So that's the kind of situation that you will get in groups, in societies, in ecosystems. So these are the typical examples of the kind of systems that are being modeled in the complex adaptive systems approach. Maybe just some of the names of the people who have developed this approach. John Holland was originally a computer scientist. He's maybe the one that has done most to make these computer simulations by developing agents that use very simple condition action rules. Chris Langton, who is one of the founders of the domain of artificial life. Artificial life is typically trying to simulate how living organisms behave and evolve. Stuart Kaufman is maybe one of the most famous ones, who's also been thinking about some of the philosophical and even spiritual implications of this new complexity paradigm. Brian Arthur, who is one of the first to introduce this paradigm into economics. This kind of paradigm is actually very useful for economics, but most economists are not yet using that. I was just reading a recent book of another of these scientists, J. Doyne Farmer, who has been using this approach to model economics. And what he says is traditional economists make such a simplified view of how the economy works that you know it's not correct. It just, that's why most economic predictions turn out to be incorrect. We need to have much more detailed simulations where not only instead of looking at the whole economy as if it's just one system, you need to look at individual firms, individual households, and model these as agents, and each of these agents tries to achieve their goal, like getting enough money, and then you can see how they interact. So let's look at some of the.
Francis, your slides aren't on.
Yeah, they're not yet on because I'm not using them. So let's look at some of these typical examples that have been modeled. So I already spoke about the economy. So typically in a market, what's a market? There are buyers and sellers. If, let's say, in a stock exchange, if a certain stock goes down in value at a certain moment, a particular agent may decide, okay, that is so cheap that I want to buy it because I expect that the price will go up again. Or another agent using different condition action rules will say, the price is going down, it probably will go down even more, so I better sell it. So what you can do is, for example, you can have agents that represent different people speculating on the stock exchange, and they have different rules. They have different rules for when they buy and when they sell. And like that, you can make a simulation of the stock exchange. And what you typically find from these simulations is that the values in the stock exchange behave pretty complex. That means that you get these kind of very irregular curves of how prices in the stock exchange go up and down. It's one of the things that this J. Doyne Farmer has been simulating. Well, if you use classical economics, where the market is supposed to always go back to equilibrium, you can't explain all these irregular movements. According to classical economics, all the people in the market should try to maximize their profit, and if they all do that, the market should come to an equilibrium and nothing should happen anymore. Well, of course, in a real market, you see these very irregular movements, and thanks to these simulations with agents, you can kind of understand how that happens. Other things that have been simulated are, for example, ancient civilizations. Like, for example, we know that the Maya civilization at a certain moment collapsed. Now you can try to understand why that happened. The Mayas used certain resources. They made certain changes in the environment. These changes in the environment in turn had an effect on their food supply. So if you can make an agent-based model of an ancient civilization, then you can see that, for example, under particular circumstances, let's say climate change, it may collapse. That's another example of how these things have been used. Other examples that we will look at in more detail is life ecosystems. So all the kind of systems where you have many individual agents that each try to achieve their goals, but they interact because in the same environment. That's where we speak about the complex adaptive system. So complex adaptive system, not everybody uses the term. It's the term of John Holland, who is one of the founders of the domain. Complex adaptive system is a system where there are individual agents, each of which is trying to adapt to what all the others are doing, with the result that the system as a whole also adapts. So if there is a large-scale perturbation, then all the agents will be affected, and some agents will react in one way, and other agents will react in another way, but the whole system will adapt. So when you start the simulation, you see lots of the different processes that we have already sketched. You will see emergence, you will see new properties emerge. You will see coupling, agents that come together that form a bond. You will see evolution, you will see variation, you will see selection, you will see self-organization. Sometimes you will see chaos, like typical these models of the stock exchange, they are kind of chaotic. Very small perturbations can suddenly make the stock exchange go up or go down. So all of these phenomena that we have discussed, you can see in these simulations. So the simulations are very rich, but they have one disadvantage, that is that you program your agent with the rules. But what are the rules that the agents in reality use? You don't know. You kind of can have some idea. For example, if you're modeling a stock exchange, you can say, well, there will be some agents that are so-called the fundamentals. They will buy stocks when the price is lower than what they consider the fundamental value of the stock. And then there are agents that you might call speculators, the ones that say that if something is moving up or down, when it's moving up, I should buy it because it will go up more. When it's going down, I should sell it because it will go down more. So you can put some rules in these agents, and sometimes your simulation will give a result that looks like the real world, like the stock exchange simulation. Sometimes it doesn't look like the real world, but even if it looks like the real world, does that mean that your agents have the right rules? You don't know. So that's the disadvantage of this thing. There are so many different rules that you could give to your agent. There's so many different types of agents that you could introduce. You can put in 100 agents, or you could put in 1 million agents. It will give you different results. Sometimes it gives you a result that looks like the real world, but is that because the real world functions like that? You don't know. So it's a very interesting approach. It can teach you a lot of things, but you don't know whether it really describes the reality. So let's look at some of the examples of how that has been done. And let's start with the simplest example. The simplest example is called a cellular automaton. So the example is that you start with an environment. You want to make it as simple as possible. So you assume that the environment has the shape like a chessboard. You have so-called cells, and an agent can be in a cell, and you can move from one cell to another. You can make it even simpler. We're not yet speaking about agents. The cells can have different states. The easiest one is there are two states. Either cell is active or it's not active. It's colored or it's not colored. And the point is to illustrate that even with these very simple assumptions, you can get very complex phenomena. And one of the most famous examples is this is called a cellular automaton. Cellular because you have cells, automaton because the rules on how the cells evolve are fixed. It's automatically, you have a certain rule that if one cell is active and another cell is not active, then the third cell will become active, for example. Depending on your rules, you can have all kinds of different names. Now, there is one particular type of cellular automaton that's very famous. It's called the game of life. Why I call it the game of life? Because the kind of phenomena you get are so complex that they look almost as if they are alive. And the best way to illustrate it is I will show it. What is the game of life? The game of life is a system of rules, and the rules are such that if three neighboring cells are active, then the cell that has the three neighbors will become active as well. Wait, let me check the rules so that I don't make any mistakes. So if a cell is not active and 3 of its neighbors are active, it becomes active in the next step. If a cell has 2 or 3 active neighbors, it remains active. In all other cases, the cell becomes inactive if it was active or remains inactive if it was inactive. So the rules for becoming active or remaining active are pretty limited, but still, in the right configurations, you will see that active cells will propagate, will move. So let me show you the example. Now I need to switch back to my... It will still need a little bit of time to start up, I guess. I think it's coming. How do I get it full screen? So this is an example of some of the active cells that move. They move because the rule tells them that certain cells have to become inactive, some cells have to become active. But you can randomly put in some, come on, it goes too fast.
I can maybe show these things from here if you want, Francis.
If you connect from the computer, that will be better. Yes.
How do I connect to the projector?
This one, that's HDMI.
Why is it called Game of Life?
Because it resembles life, so you will see you have certain things that look like organisms that propagate, that multiply, that die out at life. And if you have the right starting configuration, it will continue going on forever. It will constantly produce new configurations. And that Game of Life was often used as a kind of a screensaver. That it was something that was running on a computer screen if there was nothing there. And sometimes people who had it in the background had the feeling that there was something alive on the screen.
Sorry, my computer's not playing the projector. Maybe if you give me this dongle, I don't know. Maybe it's the...
No, that wouldn't work with your...
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Does anyone have an HDMI to USB?
To USB-C.
Okay. Wait.
Okay, good.
Right.
Yeah,
So
okay.
can draw some random.
Now there's some random stuff. So you randomly activate some, and then you see what happens. No, they are too far to. They need to be closer. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Start.
Okay. Press start.
That was not a good one.
I don't know why that's so hard to draw on this thing. You should be able to draw more easily. You have to like click every cell.
Yeah, that's the point. Oh. Yeah, okay, try, start.
Okay, start. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
No, that has died out. So you see the Game of Life, often the life just dies, but depending on what you start with, it can reproduce and multiply. No, there's something more complicated than that.
I'm trying, Francis. It's hard to draw complicated things one square at a time.
Okay, yeah, start.
Let me get a little bit
No,
more
no,
complicated.
no, it doesn't need to be too complicated.
Okay.
Oh, it's stable. The limit. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, some stabilize, but then when another. Okay, so this is, for example, one of the outcomes. It's a cyclical process. That means it repeats itself. It will repeat itself forever. Okay, try another one.
Okay.
Okay, don't make it too complicated. Just make enough close together, because if they're too far apart, they die.
Happy with this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh.
Ooh. Oh, interesting.
Okay, so that's another one that will repeat itself.
That's a beautiful one.
Yeah. Okay, try another one.
Mm.
You can add